Welcome back, everyone, for another episode of Strategy Game Stooges. My name's Nick. I'm joined by Daniel and Smitty, and in today's episode, we will be talking about Middle-earth strategy battle game. In particular, we will be going through the Armies of the Lord of the Rings book.
In the Lord of the Rings Army book, there are 27 different army lists. There's 11 narrative play scenarios and also the allies matrix that is needed to use the special rules to each army. The first army list in the book is the Fellowship, and that's the one that we'll start talking about today. The army composition.
Yes.
So the Fellowship, obviously, you're going to have the 9 Fellowship of the Ring. But you're also going to be able to have Bill the Pony, and if your army contains Frodo, you'll be able to have Smeagle. Unfortunately, Bill the Pony is currently not offered at Games Workshop, which is kind of sad. I did notice that he is on eBay. There's one posting, ends in a day if anybody wants to jump on it, but it's a whopping 50 pounds, so have fun paying for that.
You want to convert that into U.S. dollars for some of us less capable of doing that here?
Closer to 70
like
US dollars. So, yeah,
for
one
for
model.
a pony.
Yeah.
Well, do you by any chance know when do they stop making that one? It's got to be the original.
In 2018, I think, is when they when that one was no longer on the website. Although I think it's probably going to come back here since they're going to come out with the new Journey of the Fellowship book. Hopefully.
I would think so.
So maybe it'll be back in production shortly. So.
No, that's the only one for this army that we don't have. It's Bill the Pony because we have everything else.
That is correct. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
We have multiples of a few of them.
But the Bill the Pony, you could always just proxy and a horse without a rider. You know, it's the same base and everything. So.
Yeah, pretty much.
The only difference with Bill the Pony is he's got kind of that baggage pack on top of him, which is kind of cool looking. But
yeah.
And there are models for the Hobbits that have ponies too, but I think we'll get into that.
Yeah, the Scourging of the Shire set has all the Hobbits on ponies. So
yeah.
All right. So then we'll go into. They also have additional rules. So for the Fellowship, unlike normal warbands, a Fellowship warband is comprised entirely of hero models. Additionally, a Fellowship warband that contains Samwise Gamgee may also contain Bill the Pony. So that would mean that you need to have Samwise to have Bill the Pony. Is how I'd interpret that. If the warband only contains Frodo and Sam, then it may also include Smeagle.
Oh, I see. That's interesting. So it says it has to contain Frodo and Sam. But if you go to the Smeagle profile, it says Smeagle may only be taken if Frodo is taken in the same army. So I guess there's probably other lists possibly that only has Frodo and you can take Smeagle. But if you're playing the Fellowship, it must need Sam and Frodo. That's what I'm reading there. It almost contradicts itself, but I just noticed that.
Well, he can be in the Rangers list.
Because it says he may only be taken if Frodo is also in the same army. So I'm thinking what they're saying is at the very least you have to have Frodo.
That's right.
But obviously in this list they're requiring you to have Sam too.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. And then the army bonus for the Fellowship is as long as Frodo is alive and on the table or escapes subordinate scenarios where this applies, all models from the Fellowship army list gain the Fearless special rule. Additionally, a force that consists solely of models from the Fellowship army list will never be considered broken if Frodo is alive and on the table, or if he escapes in one of the scenarios where this applies.
So that's pretty crazy.
That's pretty good. Yeah. You can go up against anything pretty much.
Yeah, the Fearless special rule against some armies, it's actually really, 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 really useful.
What's the Fearless special rule? That's where you can charge and everything without taking courage tests.
Yeah, it's like the trolls that have terror. You can
when your army's
broken. Oh, that's interesting. All right, because Fearless is the model automatically passes any courage test it is required to make. Right. So even if it is broken and it has to take a courage test, it automatically passes it.
Yep.
Yeah.
which is very useful for this army because it's a
Right.
smaller army, and the hobbits are not exactly the most resilient, stout fighters. So potentially, depending on what you're running from this list, you could actually have a broken army pretty quick.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah.
So
I think, have we ever played with a lot of the Fellowship? I think we did Amon Hen
Yeah.
one once, right? And that's really
Yeah.
the only time I've really
I played
played with too much of the
I played as
Hobbits.
them with that one.
yes, I don't think I've ever included with my Gondor list. I don't think I've ever had. Have you ever done with
No,
Rohan?
I did just get
With Mary?
Eowyn painted with Mary. So, yep,
Mhm.
yep,
Oh,
correct.
Durnhelm?
So I'm excited to use that.
It's a
Yeah,
really cool looking model.
Yeah.
I don't think
Oh,
we've
we
posted a
haven't.
picture of that. We'll have to get
I'll have to
that
take
one
a
up.
picture of that one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Wants to
so
start
like
with
so Nick,
Frodo.
like you were saying, the hobbits could potentially die pretty quick, but when we go down these lists, you'll kind of see at least these hobbits that are in the Fellowship are quite different than the normal hobbits that would be in like a Shire list. Because Frodo, when he puts that mithril
Yeah.
coat on, I mean he'll be at 75 points because Frodo is 60 points. So with the mithril coat, he's 75 points, and then that actually brings his defense. He'll be a 6 defense, so that's pretty strong for a little guy.
It
Especially
is.
when I mean he can only move 4 inches, right? All the hobbits can only move 4 inches, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Frodo has
Well,
2 might, 3 wills, 3 fates, so he's probably a pretty tough kill.
I believe when we played that last scenario, Frodo was the one that was holding up longer than everyone else. But that's also because he does have the mithril
Well,
coat.
he also has the ring.
Right,
So he's
and it's
invincible.
very hard to normally hurt somebody to attack somebody with a Hobbit, but if you give him Sting, which would be another 5, so you're sitting at 80 points for one model, which is kind of a lot. But then at least he's got that 3 strength when he's making strikes. So, and then also he's got heroic
Yeah.
defense, which is one of the other heroic actions besides the normal ones. So I will have
The
continue
normal
to
ones
talk here.
being the heroic
Yeah.
move. Or it's move, right?
Yeah.
Fight. And was it shoot or what's the third one?
Yes, correct.
Shoot. So essentially he does have, because obviously everybody gets those 3, so he ends up with 4 once you add in his heroic defense. So I don't remember. So Sting. So interesting. I thought Sting was only for against orcs, but they have him. You just get +1 to their strength while carrying Sting. It has absolutely nothing to do with only versus orcs or goblins or
No.
anything.
Correct.
No. And it's an elven weapon, so you get the +1 to your fight.
Oh
Or
yeah, elven made.
the ties on the tie. Yeah.
Correct, because all the elven made stuff does.
Yeah.
That is right. And then heroic defense here. So it says a hero model that declares a heroic defense will only suffer a wound on the roll of a natural 6. So that means that you can't use any any might to kill Frodo. Put a wound on Frodo.
Which is
That's really good.
Yeah, it is. Then we move on to the special rules. Resistant to magic, and he also has throw stones. You're most likely not going to be doing a lot of damage with throw stones. It's range of 8 and strength of 1.
It's something extra you can do, but
Yeah, it's something extra, but I don't think you're going to count on that doing much damage. The resistant to magic,
no.
that one, I don't think we've never. Well, like we said, we never really
you get a
played with.
free die when you do will.
Yeah, but
like
we've
for
never
the
really played
magic.
much with the hobbits to begin with, so we haven't ever had that situation where it was real beneficial to us. And-
Lothlorien has that too. I've used it with that.
Right.
Yes.
And all the
And the
hobbits are
Frodo
resistant
doesn't.
to magic, not just Frodo.
All
Yeah,
of them
Excuse me,
are.
not all
Okay.
the hobbits, but all of the ones in this list. I can't say for the Shire list. I'm thinking actually most hobbits are
Oh,
actually
I think they
resistant to
all
magic, but
Yeah.
I can't.
They do not list ponies though in this army list. I thought they did for the hobbits.
No.
So the ponies, all the hobbits having the ponies must be for the Scouring of the Shire. Some of those legendary legends.
Correct. In the Fellowship list, they're not able to be on ponies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I always thought they were.
Thor's company can.
Hero of Fortitude. It doesn't really matter too much either, though, as far as them being Hero of Fortitude or what they are, because it's pretty much everybody in the list will just fit into the
Right.
list
And it's not
regardless.
like you can't lead
Yeah,
anybody
they aren't
else
leading
in
troops
this
in
army,
this.
right? So it's not like you really need to
Yeah.
pay too much attention
Yeah.
to that.
Yes. So then Samwise, we drop down.
Yeah.
Sam is the next one. Hero of Fortitude. He's 40 points. Same as Frodo because he's a hobbit. Movement of 4, fight 3, 3+ on the projectile hit chart. Strength of 2, defense 3, 1 attack, 2 wounds, 6 courage, 2 might, which is the same as Frodo. Then this is where it gets different. Only 2 will and 2 fate, whereas Frodo has 3 will and 3 fate. He can be equipped with the Elven Cloak, the same as Frodo, for an additional 5 points. He comes with the Dagger. Heroic actions are Heroic Strike and Heroic Strength. He does not have the Heroic Defense, which is where he differs from Frodo. Resistant to magic, like we just mentioned, as the hobbits all have that. Throw stones, and then his special rule is let him go or I'll have you, Longshanks. Sam will protect Frodo from any danger, no matter the cost. If Frodo is engaged in a fight within 6 inches of Sam, then Sam may call a heroic combat without using might. If the heroic combat is successful, then Sam must use the following move to join Frodo's combat. If this is not possible, then Sam must move as close as possible to Frodo.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I mean, that's using a heroic combat without using anything.
Mm-hmm. I like it just because of the thematic
Right.
element to it.
Right.
Yeah.
It fits really, really nicely.
But the interesting, I feel like
You know,
the heroic combat most likely won't be successful most times, right? Just because of the strength of our little.
Yeah.
You do get it though without spending might though, so you could always use might for your heroic strength if you wanted to get your strength up. There's not much else.
No. So I mean, Frodo has a lot of points compared to Sam, and I'm not seeing too many differences, right? So.
But if you put that mithril coat on, I think that's where it is. Because
I mean, a 3 defense is pretty,
you're basically
pretty peachy.
paying 20 points more for the ring, is what it is.
Yeah, and the ring doesn't do much other than makes them invisible though. And don't you have to?
Well, you have the fight value of and I think they have to roll courage to charge you.
Oh, okay.
So it is pretty good to like move around and
and for those of you who aren't familiar with the way the Armies book goes with the rule book, right? So each war gear section has special rules for, say, the dagger, right? There you could have different strikes that go with that. We'll probably have a further tutorial on that, maybe a video tutorial of like what each weapon does. That'd be kind of a cool thing to do, I think. And then obviously the one ring, it'll say what you can do with that. And then the options, these are other war gear selections. And then they also have all the different things that those do within the actual rule book manual, which is a separate set of books from the Armies of the Lord of the Ring book. So the two books go together.
Yeah, and we'll cover this more, especially if we get this video out we'll have more in depth. But the one nice thing about this edition, the way they have it set up, is if they'll list what's available in your war gear and different options, and even if there's a model out there that would require you to do some sort of a custom build to make it show it, as long as it's in there, it is 100% legal for you to do that.
Yes. Yep.
Because you don't necessarily, well, I should say this, you don't necessarily even have to change the model, because there will be some models once you get into the war gear section. Like I said, we'll explain it more, but once you get into the war gear, there are certain models that don't have it, and you don't actually have to have, it's not necessarily just because it's on the table and it doesn't have the right weapon on there. As long as you can remember it or identify it, you can actually legally play a game with that model, because in the rule book it's available to it, so
Right.
it's a legal
Yep.
model, which is nice if you're trying to, because obviously otherwise then you have to either spend more time custom making models or buying extra models, where it is kind of nice that if you want to keep the cost down and you still want to try and play it the full legal way that you can, it gives you those options in those war gear, that even if your model isn't perfectly showing it. But all right, that's enough about that. We'll wait till you can.
So,
We'll show you more
what's
about that
going
once we
on
get
here.
into the video.
Now we even see a bigger, further decrease in points for Mariotic and Peregrine, right?
Oh yeah, I was just
Yeah.
about to say, you want to talk about cheap models?
Yeah,
We found
10
it.
points apiece. So that's like almost, I mean, I play Isengard a lot. That's like one Urukai soldier. So,
Yeah.
So the reason why they're so cheap, both of these profiles are almost exactly the same. Actually, I think they are exactly the same. Do you see any differences?
It looks like they're the
Yeah.
same.
Yeah,
So
they
the
are
reason
the
why
same.
I would believe these are so cheap, right? No might and no will, right? So just one fate point apiece.
Yeah.
One fate.
But
So
but
yeah, you got
look at
fate.
this. Remember
It's a
this,
weak
right?
model,
So
though.
their special rule, right, for the Shire, right? So whilst within 3 inches of Boromir of Gondor, right, they both can
Yep.
expend a point of Boromir's might if they are able to.
Yes, and I remember now that I read that, I remember doing that when we
Yes.
played
Yep.
Am and Hen.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah, those two are with Boromir holding down the one
And
side.
you'll see later on as we go through that Boromir has some might to expend. So
That's
Yeah.
true. And even with, so that's another nice thematic thing, because Boromir did die
right.
trying
Yeah,
to
I
save
like that a lot.
and he did, like it says right here, Boromir began to train Merry and Pippin, and when they fight alongside him, the hobbits seem to find their inner strength. Boromir in the books was completely, in the movies, I feel like it's not quite lined up with the books, because he still tried to take the ring and whatnot, but I feel like they kind of portray Aragorn as like the best fighter or something like that in the movies, in my
Yeah.
opinion. But in the books,
Boromir
it's
was
very
better.
clear that of that fellowship group, like Boromir was, he
Yeah.
was a really, really, really good
And
combat
what's
fighter.
really interesting though is that I feel like okay, so all the hobbits have the same fight strength, right? But although I think Frodo's goes up, right, because of the ring. Is that true, Daniel? Or,
No, he just half an
got
enemy.
it.
So,
Because I
if
personally
you have
think
like
out
the
of the four
Urukai,
hobbits that Merry and Pippin are probably actually the better fighters. I would think, like as far as a movie perspective.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, like technically they don't
I mean,
actually have
I
their
guess
elven
Sam does
blades
fight
like they
pretty
get.
good in the movies. I don't. Frodo, he bothers me in the movie.
He doesn't fight at all.
He really does. I mean, I know he's got the ring and
Yeah.
everything, but man, he can be a baby sometimes.
Bilbo was a better fighter than him.
All right, let's get to the fun ones. How about that? I mean, those are fun, but let's get serious here.
I'll let you
Gandalf
take.
the Grey.
Yeah, I'll let you run with Gandalf the Grey here, because I know that you have a special place in your heart for Gandalf.
Oh yeah, should I go with this one? So, how many Gandalfs do we have painted?
I have one of my own.
I have 2.
4, 5. You
Well,
have
so
2.
let's just talk about Gandalf the Greys, though. I have a couple whites, but I have 2 Gandalf the Greys painted.
I have 2 painted gray in my possession right now.
That's right.
I have one.
So 3 Gandalf the Greys. In 3 Gandalf the
Yeah.
Whites.
I actually have the one that's on this page.
So I'll go down the list here.
Yes.
Gandalf. So he's 170 points without any special options. The two options that he can be given are the cart and the horse. Nick, I think you actually have that model. I'm not going to go digging for what exactly those do. Obviously, or the horse is the easiest, right? So you can charge people, you get double the rolls. It's easier to trap. Gandalf is more of he's a wizard and he's an infantry, so he's got that 6-inch move. His fight is a 5, and he hits on a 4+ with any ranged attacks. I don't think he actually has any ranged attacks except for his magic, which is based off of another
No.
casting rolls, which are slightly different. Defensive 5, he can't be given a shield or armor, so that's pretty much where he sits at with defense. He's got 1 attack, 3 wounds total, and 7 courage. Very hard for him to fail a courage test, even though they don't really even need to in this list anyway. So 3 might, 6 will, and 3 fate. He's got Glamdring, which is an elven-made sword, hand and a half sword, so it can be used as a one-handed or two-handed weapon. And it also increases the strength by 1, so he actually has a strength of 5 when making attacks with the sword. He also has, obviously, he has one of the elven rings, right? So he can re-roll his dice when making fate rolls, which is quite powerful, especially using the might, right? So he can obviously re-roll, and then he can also use that might to stay alive during those times. The additional heroic actions he has versus the normal 4 is he's got heroic resolve, heroic channeling, and heroic strike. I won't go through all those, but I would say heroic channeling is probably one of the best ones that they could give this character because it makes casting his spells a little bit harder, but it makes them a lot more effective. So there's also the big list of magical powers there. So that's quite a bit to read off here, but he has 8 different magical powers to use, anywhere from casting 2 pluses to 5 pluses for a more powerful blast. The thing I do recall playing with Gandalf is that his powers are more of not very killy powers, right? They're more of beneficial powers to keep people alive and to help out. Whereas if you will look later on in Saruman, which is more deadly, I would say.
Correct. He has. Well, Sorcerer's Blast. Does that actually kill anyone with that one? Because that'd probably be the closest one.
Yeah, that one
It can.
and that one goes through
You knock
people.
people off the
Like
horses.
you can blast them into another person who would then take a hit. So
Okay.
yeah.
Because otherwise,
I
it's
think-
the stuff here. It looks like it's all either immobilizing, like not necessarily killing the enemy, but slowing them down, or it's helping out your own army list.
Most of the time, Blinding Light is the most popular for Gandalf.
Yeah, and Blinding Light does what, Daniel?
You have to roll on you got to hit on a 6 when you shoot.
Okay.
And if you channel it, it goes to exhaustion. So when you run out of will, but he never runs out of will with his staff.
What is the? Do we know what the asterisk next to his 6 will is?
Yeah, that's his staff of power. He never runs out of will. He always has a free.
Well, he could technically run out of his normal will, and he'd only be able to do 1 each turn.
Yes.
I see.
Yes. Yeah.
That
Or
is
if his
right.
staff gets broken, then he loses it. But
Yes, very, very beneficial character. We have all sorts of Gandalfs the Grey. I feel like we don't use him enough.
No, he's not a bad
Yeah, it's
fighter
very
either.
hard to put him into a list, right? Like, I mean, when we play, we try to play around 500, 700 points, right? You put in a 170 point hero into your list. It's pretty eats up quite a bit of real estate.
It does, and
Yeah.
I'll tell you the reason why it's hard to put him in the list. Let's say you're building this list and you have a choice, and you can put 170 point Gandalf in there. And Gandalf is decent, okay? Don't get me wrong, he's decent. But Aragorn, Strider is 160 points. Boromir is 95 points.
Yeah, right.
Now, unless you specifically have use for Gandalf's magic and you like using it, and you know the army you're going to go against that you'll be able to use it, it gets back to the thing that his magic is not necessarily. So you're paying more money for his magic, and his magic is not necessarily going to be killing the enemy.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just doing some quick math here to see how much points the Fellowship Army would be if you didn't give them any special benefits. Right? And it's coming in pretty hot here. Yeah, so without, obviously, I mean, a lot of lists probably won't have Smeagle in it. Maybe they will. I've honestly never played with him, so I wouldn't really know. I feel like Build a Pony's pretty good once we get to him here. But without Build a Pony, you're sitting at 765 points for just them at their base points. So it would be really, really tough to give them all of their war gear, right? You'd have to really make some choices when you're giving out the special option war gear. So it would be really fun to run a full list of the Fellowship, though. I think we should try that sometime.
Yeah.
So let's get into Aragorn then, because this is also me coming from being the Gondor player. So now we're falling into two people available to my list, granted in a little slightly different, but in all of our experiences with Aragorn, 160 points. Aragorn has, I'll quick run through what his stats are. He's movement 6, fight value is 6. He hits on a 3+ with his bow. Strength is 4, defense is 5. Attacks are 3, wounds 3, courage 6. Well, I'll come back to might, but wound is 3, fate is 3, and his might, he gets a base number of 3, and he can spend 1 might per turn for free. He has the option to be equipped with Anduril. Anduril is Elven Made. It's hand and a half. When you make strikes with Aragorn, 4+ automatically wounds. If you choose to have it as a 2-handed weapon, he will still get the +1 to wound, meaning a 3+ is instant wound, regardless of what you're fighting against. So when you really get into some of these fights, which is what we've seen with Aragorn, and
He's good.
He's good at fighting. He's really good at fighting, and there's not much. It doesn't really matter what he's fighting, whether it's something weak or something strong. He's still going to have He's going to have probably the best chance to put out a wound than anyone else in this list. Right. And that's where it gets into, like, me. I would rather spend 30 points more. Like if Gandalf's 170, I'd rather spend 30 points more to get Anduril and put a 200 point Strider out there, because Strider is going to do some damage, and he's going to fight, and he's going to fight till he dies. You can put armor on him. He starts getting expensive with all that, because armor will put him up at defense 6, but it's really hard to kill him. And especially with that might, even if you are rolling him on certain things, or you think that he had a bad roll, he can always just use that free might.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Which makes up for a lot of deficiencies.
Yeah, well, that also helps with moving the hobbits up. With the free might, you can call
right. Look at that list of heroic actions. I don't know if there's not one that he doesn't have.
Yeah. No, he doesn't have channeling.
Yeah.
There you go.
Right.
Daniel found it.
He has quite the list there. So, and I feel like heroic march would be very, very useful with the hobbits to get them to speed up a little bit.
Yeah. They'll get up to a regular move speed, probably.
Yeah, so because I'm trying to think about using these guys in a tournament list to try to get objectives, and I feel like that would be kind of hard with the limited amount of models.
The really good players can do it.
Man, so then I wonder if it would be worth, like, if you're going to pay the points, it would depend on what the games are, but you'd almost be better paying the points to have Strider maxed out in some of this stuff. You don't have to take Frodo and Sam. I almost wonder if it'd be better off to take Strider, throw the other two hobbits in there, because those are so cheap. Just to use Strider to move them around a bit. That may be a better option if you're just trying to get high strength.
If you get rid of Frodo, you lose the Fearless.
Oh, that's true. So you'd want to keep him in there.
Yeah.
And then the last special rule here, right? So Horse Lord, right? Which is interesting because I mean I feel like he gets that probably from fighting with Rohan so much, right? When they draw their swords for one final time.
Well, he could talk to horses.
He
could talk to horses.
He is
points
part
to
elf,
prevent runes
remember.
to a mount. However, it looks like yes, he can have a horse in this list, so that does make sense. That would be interesting. A mounted fellowship list without possibly the hobbits. That'd be pretty strong, I think, too.
Well, you can use this for the 3 hunters. That's why they have a horse, I think.
Yeah, well, let's move down here now to Boromir, right? So even he can have a horse. Does he even have a model? Is there a Boromir riding a horse model?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, the one with the white tree, right?
No, I think I have Boromir that doesn't have a banner.
No, there is 2.
Fellowship.
Yeah.
I got the Fellowship Boromir.
He's on a horse? Oh,
on horse.
I'll have to take a look at that model. That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because my banner is just him on foot, but you can get him. I believe you can get him on horse with the banner. But yeah, I just got him.
I have Aragorn on horse.
Yes, you do.
The Strider one.
Cool.
The one Boromir model that I really want to get, which is kind of useless, but it's the one where he's got the 3 arrows sticking out of his chest.
Yeah, we should. I want the ones with Uruk-hai carrying Merry and Pippin away. So if I buy that, we should.
That's the Emmett head set.
We should parse it out.
Yeah.
That'd be a fun one.
In Boromir, let's quick run through what Boromir has. Boromir has movement 6 inches because he's a human, so that's pretty standard. Fight is 6, which is pretty good, equal with Aragorn. His bow, can he even have a bow in this list? No, I don't think so. But he would be a 4+ for ranged attacks. Strength is 4, defense is 5, 3 attacks, 3 wounds, 6 courage, so that's all in line with Aragorn. Then this is where Boromir gets good. He has 6 might, 1 wound, 0 fate for 95 points. 6 might on a 95-point model.
No fate.
No fate.
That
One
hurts.
will.
No fate because he dies.
You can throw.
Yeah.
I feel like he can give him 3 fate because he gets hit with 3 arrows.
Yeah, he should.
He should have that rule that the Berserkers have.
Right,
you gotta roll.
The 6+, yeah.
You can take his shield for an additional 5 points, which will give him defense 6. He has heroic march, heroic strike, heroic strength, and heroic defense. And he has the Horn of Gondor. The Horn of Gondor is kind of, if you think about it, almost like a kamikaze type ability here, because what happens is you blow the Horn of Gondor at the start of a fight if he is outnumbered 2-1 or more. The enemy combatant in the fight with the highest courage value must take a courage test. If the test is passed, the combat is fought as normal. If the test is failed, Boromir automatically wins the fight and can strike blows against his enemies. It kind of baits, I know when I play with Boromir, it kind of baits me into just wanting to throw him into the biggest mashup I can possibly find just to blow the horn.
Yeah.
Because then it helps because now I force my opponent to have to make 2 rolls basically in order to fight me.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I think that happened a lot too in our Amon Hen one, right? Too, because there's so many more Uruk than there are Fellowship. I remember that part of it.
Yeah, he got bogged down with Merry and
I feel like 6 might in a game. It's very. I mean, it's easy. At the same time, it's easy to use might, but I feel like you still have like almost 1 might every time you used him left. Like he doesn't need all that might because he's so powerful already, and then you give that to him. And it's I am almost more pestered with him than Aragorn sometimes.
Yeah.
But I mean,
correct. And he's if you give Aragorn Anduril or something like that, Boromir's half the cost, and he's pretty much just as good.
Do you think
Unfortunately, the no
Denethor
fate
would be
hurts,
happy
but
with his profile? Do you think
the
Denethor
what?
would be happy with his profile?
No.
No, it's not good enough.
He'd say, "Why is my son have no fate?"
Yeah, correct. I think Denethor would want automatic win for every army that can send Boromir. I think now what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna set the stage here for Daniel because it looks like the next guy on this list
Yep.
is Daniel's boy, his boy Legolas
Oh, yeah.
Greenleaf at 100 points.
Yeah.
Would you like to read through his profile, Daniel?
Yeah, sure. I can. All right. So he is movement 6, fight 6, and 3+. Just shooting. Strength 4, defense 4, 2 attacks, 2 wounds, and courage 6. 3 might, 2 will, and 3 fate. So he's actually about the same as the other ones, except for his shooting.
Yes, he's a little bit less. Well, you can put armor on him, but otherwise he's
Yeah.
one less defense. You put armor on him, you bump him up to the standard Boromir Aragorn.
Yeah. Well, he's got Elven Made daggers, an elf bow, and he's got heroic accuracy, heroic strike, get a horse, armor, and then the cloak.
He's actually has one less attack and one less wound though.
Yeah. Yeah, he does.
I don't know how you feel about Legolas though.
And he's more points.
I feel he should be a better shooter
he has
than
more
what he
points
is.
than Boromir. That's insane.
Correct. That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. I don't know how I feel about him because the times I've seen him play, I just don't think that the bow is ever strong enough. Every once in a while, we have a game where the bow does some damage, but I just don't feel like archers are that
Yeah.
strong or great in this
Right. All right.
game.
That's why I just think he needs to be a little better shooter than what he is. I mean, he was like the greatest archer in Middle Earth.
Yeah. What's the strength of an elf bow? 3 or is it 2?
Yeah.
I think it's 3. I think a normal
it's
bow
3.
is 2, right? And an elf bow is 3.
Yeah.
And the elf bow can shoot farther than all the other ones.
And I think a crossbow is 4. So he has deadly shot, so he can fire his bow 3 times in the shoot phase rather than once. Each of these
Yeah.
shots may be made against a different target. Alternatively, Legolas may instead choose to make one shot, but in this case he will always hit on the roll of a 2+ regardless of in the way tests, if the target is engaged in combat or any other factors including modifiers, magical powers, and so forth. If Legolas uses this one shot to target a cavalry model, he may choose whether he hits the rider or the mount. So this is one that gets really interesting because you can take, and he also has final count 42. So this is like a tandem thing with Gimli. So if Gimli,
That's a cool thing.
yes, if Legolas and Gimli are in the same army, keep track of how many models they have both killed. If at any point Legolas has fewer than Gimli, Legolas' shoot value is improved by 1. So with that, potentially you could choose the second of the options for deadly shot, and Legolas would automatically hit. If I'm correct,
Yeah.
if I'm reading this right. Or you just get 3 shots at hit
So
on
I think
2+.
that's interesting, right? Because every time we
Which is
played with
still
Legolas so
almost
far,
automatic.
I mean, except for that one time we played Amon Hen, we've never actually included him with Gimli, right? So those two
Yeah.
look like they play pretty well together, and we've never really experimented too much with that. That'd be fun to play, I think.
I mostly played him
Yep,
in
right.
Mirkwood.
And I'm just looking up here. So elf bow, so 24-inch range, just like the other bows, but the strength is 3 compared to a normal bow is 2. I almost feel like his bow should be a strength 4, in line with like a crossbow level
Yeah.
almost, just because about this. I feel like it should be more powerful, but
Yeah.
Now, doesn't he get a new bow
Yeah,
from Gladriel?
yeah, and that's interesting.
Yeah,
he
he
doesn't
does.
have a named bow, right? It does, or I feel like Gladriel does give him a named bow though.
Yeah, I don't know if it's named or it's just called a like
Just another
Galadriel
reason to
bow or
rewatch
something.
the trilogy. Guess I gotta get on that again. Like a week in a row.
Yeah. I want I wonder if it would have made sense to have a point value, a higher point value, kind of how Aragorn can have
Yeah.
Anduril. If they would have given a stronger bow for Legolas, just it costs more
Yeah, I
points.
feel that. Yeah, that's a very good point. Very good point. I mean, who? Yeah, I guess Boromir and Gimli don't have named weapons, but Gandalf and Aragorn do.
Gimli, he gets
Yeah,
hair. Why they should have hair in the options? What's that? Give them more cards
chops
or
of
something
Gimli.
like that. Yeah. Speaking of Gimli, he's the
Next
next one
one
here
up.
in the list. And here's another. He's another. Yeah, next one up, 100 points. And he seems more worth the 100 points than Legos. But maybe this is partly I just don't know how to use Legos very well. Because Gimli, he's
Yeah.
5-inch movement.
He's a good fighter.
He is fight 6, 4+ for ranged attacks, strength 4, defense 8.
Yeah.
That's high.
Heavy dwarf armor.
That is really high. Attacks 2, 2 wound, 6 courage, 3 might, 2 will, 2 fate. He has axes of the dwarves. Gimli can choose to use either an axe in each hand, in which case he fights with 3 attacks, or use his two-handed axe, and then he only gets 2 attacks out of that.
Very interesting.
As well as I myself am sitting pretty on 43, which is the counterbalance to Legolas' final count 42. If Legolas and Gimli are in the same army, then keep track of how many models they have both killed. If at any point Gimli has fewer kills than Legolas, Gimli receives a +1 bonus to wound whilst in combat.
Yeah.
So that would
Those are pretty cool.
bump up his
Very
strength
thematic.
to 5.
That's interesting. That makes sense. I just realized that the final count ones, the 42 and the 43, they have less than that because they're trying to catch up. I get that. That makes a lot more sense. Nice.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nice.
I guess if you factor in they're kind of like a combo tandem one, it's 200 points. It's not bad for 200
Yeah, I
points.
think so.
The only
You know,
thing
if
I
you
like with Gimli is
factored in
that
like that.
5-inch movement. I know he's a dwarf, but he keeps up pretty good in the movies. He's always behind, but he keeps up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was surprised partly. You would think that elves would have a little bit. They're a little
Yeah,
quicker than
maybe.
humans, so they should have a little
mean,
bit
they
higher
don't-
movement.
Yeah,
They're
I
woodland
think so.
creatures though, so it's the terrain that really creeps up on them where they don't have to have their movement, right? So
Yeah.
and then Gimli's got the throwing axes, right? So
Yep.
so that's pretty nice.
Yep.
That's what was that range?
Gimli is well armed. He has heavy dwarf armor, a master forged two-handed axe. So master forged, does that mean that you can use
You
two-handed?
don't take the penalty.
You don't get the
You don't
penalty.
take the penalty.
So he has a master forged two-handed axe, 2 axes, and throwing axes. So he is well armed.
I wonder why he's so slow
Yeah,
behind everyone.
it's kind of like a tank. Defense
Yeah.
8. That is incredible to
And I
have
believe
defense 8.
so. Gimli. So in order to
I
do
actually,
a throwing weapon, you can do your whole move. You can get an inch up to an inch, right? Throw your weapon and then charge on. So he can put a strength 3 hit on you before he even gets into combat with you, which is pretty awesome. Especially if you do that with another heroic fight, he could get on to a couple different opponents pretty quick there.
Yeah, or is it fight or heroic combat? Whichever one. Yeah, I know what you're
combat.
talking about.
Yes, combat, not fight.
Yeah. So these ones have all been Hero of Valor. So the only Hero of Legend is Gandalf in this list.
Yeah.
So he would have to be the leader, right?
Not that.
Okay.
That's right. And then if you took one of the other ones, you get to pick one.
That is so. Those ones are the main list, and I think most people that are going to play this list, you're going to see pretty much that's what it's going to comprise of. But all that's left now is we'll get into Smeagle and Build a Pony, and I'll let you go through Build a Pony here, Smitty, because from the sound of it, I think you believe he's pretty good, and I don't really know much about Build a Pony.
I'm excited to try to use Build a Pony sometime. I mean, he doesn't really do much, but the things that he does for the team as a whole. So Build a Pony is only 25 points, which is 15 points more than a normal horse, right? Which isn't too crazy. His move is 8 inches. A pony's move is 8 inches compared to a horse 10-inch move. His fight value is a 1, but he's not able to actually get into combat, unless somebody else charges him. So it kind of makes sense. I don't know why he has a shoot value, but all models have shoot values, whether they have a range attack or not. Strength 3, defense 4, attacks 1, wounds 2, courage 3, no might, 1 will, 1 fate. So he's got iron shod hooves. I'll look that up in a minute here. But his special rules, right? So official meals, right? So he's got all this baggage on his back. That's like a meal. All the stuff he's carrying, right? And hobbits treat Bill the pony as a banner. So essentially, a banner normally costs 25 points on its own, right? And this is its own a model and a banner in one. So that's kind of intriguing to take this. And then also second breakfast, right? So each turn, a single member of the fellowship that ends their move in base contact with Bill can attempt to regain a point of might, will, or fate spent early in the battle. They just roll a dice. On a 5+, they get that back. So that's a very interesting one to use, especially for people that already have might that could potentially gain a will or a fate point, right? And then only a pony. So Bill is only a pony, right? So nobody's on him. So he can never charge an enemy model for any reason. And no other model may use his stand fast, which is his courage test. However, he can benefit from the Hobbit stand fast. So he's very interesting indeed, and I hope to see him back in print someday.
Yeah.
Now you said for second breakfast there, where you can regain the might, will, and fate. That is actually you have to regain a point spent earlier in battle. So if you don't already have the will or fate, you can't add to what your
right. You can't get over it. But I believe if you were trying to get a fate point that you had already lost and you have might, I think you could use that to that dice roll potentially. I believe so.
Okay.
Which would be
all right. I was just clarifying because
I'm saying you can't get more. You can
you have to already spend the point
to get to that 5+ to get a possible will point.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, like I said, a banner's 25 points normally. He's a banner to 4 people for the hobbits. And then he's also he could capture objectives and things like that. So definitely I think that would be a good thing to have in a competitive tournament list.
For sure. He's got 8-inch movement too, so he's actually the quickest moving of any of these.
Say that again?
He's got 8-inch movement, so he's actually the quickest, unless, of course, you give a horse to one of the other guys. But otherwise, if you just take like their base profiles, he's the quickest moving model out here. Those extra 2 inches are nice to if you are trying to capture those objectives quickly.
Right. I'm trying to find what these ironed hooves are, but I'm having a hard time finding it here in the Army book or in the rule book.
That's probably just what they called his attack. He might not actually do anything special.
Yeah, it may not be a special thing. It's just war gear.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything special.
Well, if you happen to see it, we'll swing back to it. I'll move on to Smeagle here, and if you find the hooves, we can always jump back at that. So Smeagle here is 30 points. He is the one that you have to have in this list. You have to have Frodo and Sam in the same army. Any other list that Smeagle could be part of, you have to have at least Frodo in. That's just the bare minimum requirements. He is Cave Dweller, which has to do with, I believe that helps him climb, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think you can climb.
Cave Dweller is a model with a special rule, adds 1 to all jump, leap, and climb tests. And they also suffer no penalties for fighting in the dark.
I don't think we've ever fought in the dark before. That may be something we need to try.
That's probably the
We're gonna need
scenarios
to get
where it's like dark out.
Yeah.
some dark in the dark classes so we can turn the lights off.
Yep. Make it real authentic. Smeagle is armed with Smeagle has strong strangling fingers, so he is never considered unarmed ever.
I
Good
like how
old-
they added the ever.
correct. 5-inch movement, fight a 4, 4+ on the projectile chart, strength 4, defense 4, attack 2, wounds 2, courage 4, 1 might, 0 will, 1 fate.
It's very interesting that he doesn't have like. I'm just thinking of like Grima Wormtongue, right, where he's got like some sly different special rules. I'm surprised Smeagol doesn't like kind of
Yeah.
go both ways between evil and good at times.
Yeah, it'd be interesting though, unless they're trying to include him to the point of it's not at this point while he's with the full fellowship, he's although the fellowship was kind of disbanded by the time they finally got
Right.
Smeagol. So that is interesting that Smeagol would even be in this list to begin with.
What's really interesting is he's actually stronger than the hobbits.
Well, that's because he has those strong.
I know he's
strangling
stronger
fingers.
and his fight value's higher. And he's got a higher defense. He's got literally a cloth on, and he's got a higher defense. Never noticed that.
Yeah, that's the Gollum influence in
Yeah, I
him.
guess so. I feel like it's because there's really two people inside that body. That's the kicker right there.
You know, I still wonder why. Because I just thought of that. So, like when the Fellowship was disbanded, Smeagol was never part.
Yeah,
of
but
the
Smeagol
Fellowship.
followed the fellowship.
Yeah, that's where you would think they'd add some special
I
rule
know.
in there,
I don't know.
like
I was trying to see if
stalk unseen
he's
or
the
something.
same
I feel like
as
he's a pretty
Gollum
cheap
instead of
hero
Smeagol in
to
the
put in
Hobbit
that
book.
list then. You know,
Yes.
he's essentially. I'm just thinking of like the profiles that I'm aware of off the top of my head. He's just as strong as a Rohan warrior. So
Yeah,
although
30
the
points, throw him in there.
Rohan
He's still
warriors
got
are
one mic.
only are only about 8 points. So
Yeah, but still, if you're trying to get some bodies in this list, throw them in there.
And I just realized he has the Hobbit keyword, so he can actually go off of Bill's. Stuff.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yep, as a banner. And what does the banner?
Yeah.
It lets you re-roll a dice roll, right?
Yeah.
Interesting, very interesting.
Hmm.
Huh. Well, that's the fellowship list.
And we've only played, like we said, we only played that Am and Hen. That's the closest we've ever done with actually playing this list was Am and Hen. And from when we played that, the Fellowship did win. And that was primarily from now that was different because the hobbits never actually fully died. So even though Merry and Pippin kept quote unquote dying, according to that scenario, I believe they just became captured and not dead.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, I think one of them got off
if
the
I remember
board,
correctly,
if I
Boromir
remember.
kept ripping them away from the Uruk-hai.
Yeah.
Because that's what I specifically remember the most was both Aragorn and then specifically Boromir. They were just mowing down the
Yes,
Urks.
right. Yep. So next up, we're going to have the Shire. Hopefully, I don't know when we're going to do our next podcast. Maybe next week. Maybe I feel like these are pretty quick. I mean, we're coming here on the hour mark. Trying to keep them a little bit shorter, but I think the Shire might be a little bit quicker. We could probably put it into a 30-minute podcast. So maybe next week we'll throw this one up. I did just get all the models for Scourging of the Shire, so I'm really excited. Look for posts of me trying to finish these. I'll probably get some of them commission painted because that's a lot of models to paint. But look for.
Yeah.
Hopefully, you guys look forward to seeing seeing those. Also, we don't necessarily have to go in order. If anybody has any requests, we can go. We can take requests and go out of line here. So it's up to you guys.
Well, thanks again for listening. If you enjoyed what you heard, I hope you check out other episodes. I'd like to give a special shout out to the Out of the Frying Pan podcast. If you would like some more Middle Earth content, they are also a podcast out there trying to promote the hobby. So check them out as well. Don't forget to like us on Instagram, follow us on Facebook, I don't know. Which one is it? Is Instagram follow? I think Instagram's follow, Facebook's like. Either way, I think you know what I mean. But look us up. We're on YouTube, and make sure you stay tuned. Watch for our videos as we keep trying to put out new stuff. Let us know if you have any comments. And remember, if we can do it, so can you.